Well, 2022 will certainly be a year to remember for the Phillies. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Phillies Hot Stew Meeting Tour. You're going to have in our 2022 Phillies season/postseason review. And of course, this is usually done the last day of the regular season. And for obvious reasons, I decided to extend it until the playoffs were over and the Phillies were no longer playing baseball. I meant to get this video out yesterday. Unfortunately, I just ran out of time, so we're going to be doing it here this morning. Now, guys, before we get into this video, please subscribe if you haven't yet. Please turn on the notification bell. Please like this video, comment on this video, share this video, and let's get into this. So we have a lot to talk about in this one. Usually this is a longer video than my average time of about under 15 minutes. So this is probably going to span about 4 or 5 minutes more than I usually do. Before I start discussing things, I just like to say it's pretty obvious. I usually don't like to point this kind of stuff out, but there's a loud noise that you can hear right now. I apologize for that. There's not much I can do. I have a very short time span to get this video done anyway. The Phillies in the regular season finished off with an 87-75 record that got them in the third spot of the National League wild card. That gave them a date with the St. Louis Cardinals. Coming off of the 2021 season where he finished 82-80, Bryce Harper won the National League Most Valuable Player, the second of his career. There are a lot of high expectations coming into the 2022 season. Dave Dombrowski had a very busy, early spring training, I'd say, because there really was no offseason at all. Because of the lockout, we had to wait a very long time to see free agent signings, and he did sign Kyle Schwarber to a 4-year, $79 million contract. Right after the lockout. And that was a wonderful signing. I said pretty much all off-season during the lockout, I said sign Kyle Schwarber for the 2022 season. The Phillies do that. They got their guy at a really good deal, too. That was a really good pickup by Dave Dombrowski. He also picks up Nick Castellanos on a 5-year, $100 million deal, which isn't really looking so good right now. Nick Castellanos really underperformed this year. We'll talk about this a little bit later. But he also makes some moves out of the bullpen with signing Brand Hand, 1 year, $6 million. Corey Knebel before the lockout, 1 year, $10 million. And then he went out and signed Jerry's Familia, also at the lockout, 1 year, $6 million, which was an absolute disaster. Of course, didn't finish the year with the team simply because he was an absolute disaster. As I said, he was designated for assignment, so he was just a joke. I expected this team to make the playoffs going into the season. I did. And we had a lot to prove. We hadn't made the playoffs since 2011. We only finished 2 games above that 500 mark last year under Joe Girardi, and we head into this season with Joe Girardi at the helm. And we got off to a really, really bad start. And these things were really clicking for us to start off the season. This lineup, was going to be lethal. We all knew that. But honestly, it wasn't really looking so good. Of course, we won that first series against the Oakland A's. We won the first game in that New York Mets series at home, and then we lost 2 straight. This offense really was looking sluggish. The first 2 weeks of the season, Bryce Harper wasn't looking very good, coming off of his MVP season the year prior. These things were not really looking too good for this team. Joe Girardi, he kind of had that militant managerial style, and it didn't really seem to sit too well with these guys. It just didn't. This things just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and it just kept dragging on. By the date of June 1st, the Phillies sat 21-29. And it reminded me an awful lot of the Washington Nationals in 2019. They were, in a very similar position around the same time, and they made it all the way to the World Series and were able to win the World Series against the Astros. Of course, the Phillies make it, but do unfortunately lose in 6 games. But we were in a tough position. I said the season is over. Best case scenario, we finish off the season with a 500 record. That's like the best case, but we do more than just that. Rob Thompson takes over after Joe Girardi gets fired. This was just a crazy, crazy season. Just absolutely crazy. We never, ever saw this coming. No one in baseball ever would have thought the Phillies would have been in the World Series and would have won the National League pennant on June 1st of this year. People would have said, you're out of your mind. That is not going to happen. Well, sure enough, it happened. Rob Thompson takes over, and this Phillies team just absolutely takes off. They start winning again. They start having fun again. So, of course, Joe Girardi's final game as Phillies manager, the Phillies are able to pull one out and salvage the series against the Giants. and win 6-5. Then we have the off day, and then that is when Joe Girardi was fired and Rob Thompson was brought in as manager, as interim manager on June 3rd against the Los Angeles Angels. We won that game 10-0. So that's how we responded to our manager being fired. And I like Joe Girardi. I did. I think he's a very good baseball person. I think he is a good person. But I think, after as time goes on, you kind of lose your touch as a manager. And that's what I think happened with Joe Girardi. I just think he lost his touch as a manager. And he just, there's a certain connection you have with your players. And that is why he was let go from the Yankees. That's why his contract wasn't renewed, because of the young, baby bombers at that time, like Gary Sanchez and Aaron Judge. They were concerned about the chemistry that Joe Girardi would have with those two guys. And that is why they brought in Aaron Boone over Joe Girardi at the end of the 2017 season, heading into the 2018 season. And the Phillies went on an absolute tear under Rob Thompson to start it off, winning 8 games in a row under Rob Thompson. Of course, it was a 9-game winning streak, but still one heck of a job by the Phillies to start it off when Rob Thompson came back. And Bryce Harper was in his MVP form. He was firing at all cylinders. Of course, back in April, unfortunately for him, he did tear his UCL on a throw from right field. He's never been able to play right field since. He had the DH pretty much like 97% of the whole entire season. And the Phillies were smacked with a huge blow. Because on June 25th against San Diego Padres in a 4-2 Phillies win, Bryce Harper was hit by a pitch by Blake Snell and broke his thumb and was going to be out at least 2 months. And that was just devastating. Just as the Phillies were starting to get it going, just as the Phillies were starting to hit and finally play good baseball, their best player had to go down with a devastating broken thumb injury. And you're thinking like, oh my gosh, is our season over? First of all, there was already talk about Bryce Harper possibly getting Tommy John, before this point because of the UCL tear in the throat from right field. So things were really looking too good. Things weren't really looking too good. And during Bryce Harper's absence, other guys stepped up. And that big guy was Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber stepped up in such a big way. We just went on an absolute home run tear. He was phenomenal during this time. He really picked up the load, when Bryce Harper went down. And the Phillies continued to play very good baseball heading into the month of July. Everybody just kept counting this team out, and rightfully so. They lose their best player. You think things are going to get any better? I don't think so. But you know what? They just kept playing good baseball. And I think during Bryce Harper's absence, I think it forced other guys to step up and start playing well. And I think that's why we were just so successful during his absence. So we go through July, have an above 500 record, and we head into the month of August, also finished that month with an above 500 record under manager Rob Thompson. Of course, we still have our struggles, with losing 2-3 to the Arizona Diamondbacks out in Arizona. But we did our job against the Miami Marlins. We did. We finally did the job against them this year. It's about time. It's about time. It feels like we kind of broke that curse, because ever since 2018, really hadn't done much against the Miami Marlins, and it was just so frustrating. And it seems like we kind of figured that out a little bit. And of course, on Monday, August 26th, Bryce Harper returned to the Phillies starting lineup against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And that was just absolutely wonderful. But unfortunately, after that point, the Phillies really didn't play that great of baseball. They pretty much had a wild card spot solidified, and they almost lost it. And I think the lowest point after that was when we got swept out by the Chicago Cubs and lost 2-0 on Thursday, September 29th. I'm like, we are not going to make the playoffs. Are you kidding me? Another season where we pretty much had it in the bag and we couldn't get the job done. And this is why this whole season was not smooth sailing at all. So many bumpy roads, so many just ups and downs. This was just horrible. It really was in a lot of ways. It was exciting but horrible at the same time, because it just was just aggravating as heck, man. Every single time you thought this Phillies team was going to start to get it going. Of course, they're at the top of their game when Bryce Harper comes back, and then when he does come back, they just start playing terrible again. You're thinking like, oh my gosh. Of course, it's not Bryce Harper, but you're thinking like, oh my goodness gracious. Of course, Nick Castellanos was terrible all year long. We'll get into him a little bit. But the Phillies sneaked their way into the postseason in Houston. Of course, that first game of that 3-game series. Little did we know we'd later be coming back about 3 weeks later to play them in the World Series. Nobody really gave them a chance against the St. Louis Cardinals. They come in and they win 2 straight. Gene Segura with a huge clutch, go-ahead RBI single in that top of the 9th inning against the St. Louis Cardinals. and we were trailing. I mean, we came all the way back and won that game. Of course, 6-3 was your final score. Of course, we were down 2-0, and we had a 6-run top of the 9th inning. So that was just incredible. Of course, we won the second game 2-0. Then against the Atlanta Braves, the defending world champs, nobody gave us a chance. We won the first game out there, by the final score 7-6, and we were up 7-1 at one point. Oh boy, we almost blew that one, and then we lost the second one 3-0. With Zach Wheeler on the mound, we got absolutely no run support at all. Then we squashed them 9-1 and 8-3 to finish out and close out that series as we eliminated the defending world champs, and that felt really good, especially since they're a division rival. And of course, the San Diego Padres who go out there and win the first game 2-0. We almost blew that one. The Phillies defense was starting to unravel. We should have won the second game, but unfortunately we fell to the Padres 8-5. Of course, we had a 4-0 lead with Noel on the mound, and he just fell apart. Then we would sweep the Padres at home and win 3 straight, 4-2 and 10-6. A lot of fights shown by the Phillies in this series and the Atlanta Braves series, and 4-3 on a Sunday, October 23rd. And the Phillies, they had their chances in the World Series. They did. And I still can't believe they won the NL pennant. I still, as disappointed as I am, that they lost the World Series, I still can't believe they won the pennant. It just still doesn't seem real to me. It really just doesn't seem real to me. They won the first game 6-5 after coming back from a 5-0 deficit. And then they would lose the second game 5-2. They were pretty flat in that one. Then they won the third game 7-0. You were up 2-1 heading into game 4. Then you get no hit and lose 5-0. And at that point, I knew pretty much the series was over. Then we lost 3-2. We just couldn't get the job done. We're in score position. We couldn't execute simple fundamentals. And we go back to Houston down 3-2. And we lose in a very flat fashion. Game 6, 4-1. Kyle Schwarber, your only run of the ball game in the soul blast to right field. So, weird season. Very, very weird season. It kind of feels like the last 3 games of the World Series, the old Phillies kind of returned a little bit. I don't mean to sound like that, but unfortunately the bats just went cold at the worst possible time. And that's exactly what happened. That is exactly what happened, and it's just so disappointing. I mean, no one likes to lose. I hate losing. It's not fun at all. It is not fun at all. If you go take a look at some of the team stats here. JT Muto, wonderful bounce back season. Great season by JT Muto. Coming off of a season that was very underwhelming in a lot of ways. Hits 22 home runs, drives an 84, hits 276 with a 820 OPS. I mean, he had an all-star season. BCIB. I mean, he kind of went away last year, and the BCIB returned this year. Great job behind home plate. Luckily, we have him back there for another 3 years. So that is a very good feeling. And Rhys Hoskins, his first full healthy season since 2019. 2020 he was hurt, to finish out that year in the short season. 2021, of course, he missed all of September. And he batted .246 with a 794 PS, so almost 800. And he was able to slug 30 home runs with 79 RBIs. Him as a defender really scares me, and he's under a lot of scrutiny right now. He's not a very popular man here in Philadelphia. Simply because of his just bad defense at first base. It's horrible, man. He's a terrible defensive first baseman. It needs to be talked about. So I'm very disappointed with him in that regard. And Gene Segura, 277 average. He's just more of a singles hitter. A 387 slugging percentage. I mean, it just kind of proves he's just a singles hitter for the most part. And the 723 OPS. He's just a mediocre second baseman that does put the bat on the ball a good amount. I don't see him being brought back. I don't think the Phillies are going to pick up on his option. But with the shift being banned, he might have more range at second base. If you get him on a relatively cheap contract, maybe you bring him back. And Bryson Stott in his rookie year, 234 average, and he finishes with a 653 OPS. He was very good a defender at times. Of course, he made his fluke blunders there and there, but yeah, he's a rookie. He's still learning the ropes of being a big league shortstop. I mean, it's certainly a big adjustment from being in AAA and being up in the big leagues. And I think he adjusted pretty well. He hardly got any playing time because Joe Girardi doesn't value young talent. Bryce Harper even called him out on that after he was fired. Now Bryson Stott gets to play every day. That's what Bryce Harper said. Basically, essentially calling out his former manager for not playing Bryson Stott enough, and he clearly did it. Al Bohm finishes off the season with a 280 average and a 713 OPS. Another singles hitter. Even more so than Gene Segura, I say. It's just oh my gosh, it just felt like every at-bat this guy was just roping a single the other way to right field. Only 10 home runs, 49 RBIs. Really started off the season on a rough note. Wasn't even sure he was even going to make the team. Wasn't sure if he was going to be traded to the Oakland A's. Remember that at the beginning of the season? So a lot of uncertainty surrounding Al Bohm heading into the season. But hey, it was a lot better than last year. But I think this is pretty much what Al Bohm's going to give you. A 280 average with a 713 OPS. it's just not great. You know what I mean? I think everybody would agree with me on that. Just kind of okay. You know what I mean? Like, I think Bryson Stott, I've already said this, I think Bryson Stott has a higher ceiling than Alec Bohm does. And I'm more excited about Bryson Stott than I am Alec Bohm right now. Kyle Schwarber. Our first year in Philadelphia, he has a career high 46 home runs, and he only has 94 RBIs because he was out of the leadoff spot. So 46 tanks for Schwarb. He was just a monster this year. Of course, the 218 average isn't very flashy. Walks were kind of in and out for him. He does finish with a 323 OBP, which could have been a lot better in my opinion. Could have been a heck of a lot better. At the beginning of the season, he was much better in that department. In the second half, not so much. Matt Vierling, the platoon out there in center, saw some time with Odubel Herrera, Brandon Marsh. Wasn't out there every day, but he finishes with a 246 average and a 648 OPS. I mean, showed signs of a lot of potential. Great defender. I think he has a lot of potential, but still, I mean, this kind of mediocre. If you go take a look, it's kind of middle of the road. And Nick Castellanos, such a disappointment. First year of a 5-year, $100 million contract. Finishes the season with a 263 average, 694 OPS, slugs 389. And the big reason as to why that is because he actually did a pretty good job in the doubles department. I'll give him that. I'll certainly give him that. But for the most part, he's just a singles hitter. And the biggest stat in my mind, which is the biggest, other than the 297 OBP, but he's never been good at getting on base. His ability to take pitches outside strike zone is horrible. He has terrible plate discipline. He doesn't understand that there is a strike zone. He just thinks every single pitch is a strike because he's just going up there hacking at every pitch. It just drives me crazy. Instead of just being patient, he has to swing at every pitch. So 13 home runs, major disappointment. After a season you're coming back from, you hit 34, you come back and hit 13, a measly 13 in our ballpark. I mean, come on, man. I mean, you got to do more than that. 62 RBIs, and Bryce Harper finishes the season with 18 home runs. He could have had 20 very easily. Unfortunately, he just kind of cooled off at the end there. 65 RBIs, 286 average, a 364 OBP, and a 877 OPS. So he was at the top of his game, probably on track for another MVP. I mean, the only thing that was hindering him prior to being hit by the thumb was the fact he had the DH. And it's really, really hard to win MVP when you're a DH every day. I mean, it's pretty much, not really that possible. Hopefully next year he'll be back out in right field. As I said, with the torn UCL, limited his time out there in right field. He got like 3-4 games out there. I mean, my gosh, it was pretty much in the New York Mets series, the second series of the year. He couldn't even play right field. It just was so disappointing. Go take a look at some of the other guys. I'm not really going to go too much into it. I'll talk about Garrett Stubbs, a great backup catcher for the Phillies this year. Finished with a 264 average and 812 OPS as a backup catcher. He played 46 games and an 810 OPS as a backup catcher. World's better than Andrew Knapp. Hitting from the left-hand side of the batter's box. Great chemistry with the guys. Had a lot of clutches as well. Of course, the walk-off run against the Marlins to come back from being behind Brandon Marsh in mid-season acquisition. Showed a lot of promise. A 288 average. Didn't really come through in the playoffs, unfortunately. A 773 OPS. And Derek Hall also showed a lot of promise against right-handed pitching, that is, unfortunately. 250 average, 804 OPS. And he also was able to slug 9 home runs very quietly with 16 RBIs. Guys like Yohan Camargo were major disappointments. Weren't really, contributing into this Phillies team's success. And Didi Gregorius, Super Herrera also were cut. Go take a look at the postseason. Bryce Harper was by far the Phillies' most valuable player in the postseason. He was a monster. Even though he unfortunately just couldn't do it the last 3 games, he was a monster pretty much the entire postseason. He was by far the most consistent hitter, and heck of a job by Bryce Harper this postseason. I mean, JT Mucho at times certainly showed a lot of promise as well. He looked pretty good, with really flashing the letter back behind home plate. The inside the arm run in the division series. So it just was incredible. It really was incredible. Only the second catcher ever in the postseason hit an inside the park home run. Think about that. And the first ever to do it at Citizens Bank Park in the postseason. And JT Muto was your guy. Go take a look at the starting staff. Aaron Nola, even though he did fold in the postseason, finishes with an 11-13 record, which really isn't a good representation of how well he pitched. A 3.25 ERA. He really was just so much better this year. 205 innings of work, 235 strikeouts. And I heard somebody say going in this year he's not a strikeout pitcher. That is a joke. You really think that a guy that corrects 235 strikeouts and 205 innings of work isn't a strikeout pitcher? Give me a break, bud. This guy is totally a strikeout pitcher. Wonderful job. Of course, at times he could kind of be a ground ball pitcher too, but Wonderful job by Aaron Nola this season. In the regular season, that is. The postseason, not so much. And Colin Gibson, disaster. Of course, free agent at the end of this year, will not be brought back. A 5.5 ERA this year, 167 and 2/3 innings of work. He was just an absolute disaster. This was like batting practice whenever they faced him. Ranger Suarez started off the season kind of on a rough note and finishes with a 3.65 ERA and 155 and 1/3 innings pitched. Of course, we did like to see that number a little bit higher, but to coming off of the 2021 season, which he was very good, I'd say that that's a pretty good follow-up to that. And Zach Lear, 2.82 ERA for him. And 153 innings. Of course, he missed about 3 weeks there on the IL, and that was very unfortunate. The Phillies really did miss him coming out of the rotation, and 163 strikeouts for Zach Lear. I mean, by far the ace of this rotation. Did really well in the World Series. Game 6, Bailey Falter, a 3.86 ERA. He started 16 games for the Phils. I mean, he really stepped up. And Zach Lear went on the IL. He really stepped up in a big way. So I give Bailey Falter a lot of credit. And Zach Eflin finishes with a 3-5 record with a 4.4 ERA. Started, good amount of games for us, the first few months of the season, but then, was hit with another injury, and he's had a lot of knee problems, and he came back and came out of the bullpen, which is a very good place for him. Of course, guys like Corey Knebel, 3.43 ERA, not a good signing by Dave Dombrowski. I mean, $10+ million for this, not worth it in my opinion. Andrew Bellotti, also a 3.31 ERA, very good job for him this season, 59 games. And Jose Alvarado, 3.18 ERA in 59 games, wasn't there in the postseason at all. But this bullpen was still a heck of a lot better. I mean, this is by far the best bullpen we've seen in a while. And Sandy Dominguez coming back also helped with a 3 ERA in 54 games. And even Brad Hand, even though he really didn't finish off the season that strong, still finishes with a 2.80 ERA overall this season in 55 games. Of course, Noah Syndergaard, brought over from the trade deadline from the Angels, a 5-2 record here for the Phils at a 4.12 ERA, and started 9 games. Of course, he came over here as a starter. I don't know if he'll ever start again. I just think he might be a middle reliever. He's changed so much as a pitcher. I talked about that a lot, and I'd love to just keep talking, but that is pretty much it. I mean, the pitching staff was very good regular season for the most part. The bullpen was so much better, so much more consistent. Another guy stepped in the rotation like Bailey Falter. I mean, the biggest one that comes to mind when Zach Lear was injured, he stepped up. Aaron Nola with a great bounce back season. And it was great to see a guy like Kyle Schwarber come in here and just launch home runs at our ballpark. Because even Bryce Harper, I mean, he hit like 35 runs last year. He hit 35 in 2019, but 46... It's something Bryce Harper has never touched. Of course, he touched 42 in 2015. That's the highest he's ever gotten. And Kyle Schwarber, the career high 46 home runs. So that certainly was a big highlight. And a lot of big highlights. I mean, he made it to the World Series. It reminds me a lot of the 93 team. This is my 2022 review. I could honestly probably even go on for another 20 minutes, but I only have so much time. A little bit of an announcement here. I'm going to be taking the rest of the month of November off. I'm very busy right now. Finals are coming up in my college. I'm just moved into a new house. So the first time in probably forever, I'm going to be taking the rest of the month of November off. And I'll keep you posted. And I just need a break. I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out. And I think that, you guys watch. You know how much I upload. So I just need a break. So I hope you guys are understanding of that. So guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Please turn on engagement bell. Please like this video, comment on this video, share this video, check out the social media, link in the description section at Phillies Hot Stove Media, Instagram, follow me on Twitter at PHotStoveMedia, card text 267-225-3392, email me PhilliesHotStoveMedia@gmail.com. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm Luke Nutshock. Thank you all once again for a great season. I'll see you guys.